In this podcast episode, Rich Roll sits down with Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, best-selling author, award-winning gastroenterologist, and leading expert on gut health and the microbiome. They delve deeply into the powerful relationship between the gut microbiome and the immune system, and how modern lifestyles negatively impact gut health, resulting in chronic low-grade inflammation that contributes to many diseases. Dr. Bulsiewicz presents actionable strategies focusing on essential dietary nutrients, lifestyle changes including circadian rhythm alignment, fasting, and mental and spiritual well-being to restore gut balance and overall health. Dr. Bulsiewicz frames chronic inflammation and gut health as pivotal to the modern epidemic of chronic diseases such as heart disease, diabetes, cancer, and autoimmune disorders. Although not always explicitly listed, inflammation underpins these illnesses. He explains that a dysregulated gut microbiome, dysbiosis, is consistently linked to these conditions. Through his research, he discovered over 130 health conditions associated with inflammation, and all are tied to gut microbiome imbalances. Manipulating the microbiome directly influences immune system activity. Healthier microbes correlate with reduced inflammation and vice versa. He emphasizes that the microbiome is one of the most modifiable factors in disease prevention and management, more so than genetics, which remain uncontrollable. The gut microbiome affects the immune system located largely in the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, protected by the gut barrier or epithelial layer, renewed every 3 to 5 days. When this barrier weakens, a state known as increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut, inflammatory bacterial components cross into the bloodstream, triggering chronic low-grade inflammation. This subtle inflammation manifests as fatigue, mood disturbances, brain fog, hormonal imbalances, digestive symptoms, and more, complicating diagnosis and treatment, since doctors tend to address symptoms in isolation rather than appreciating systemic inflammation rooted in gut health. Dr. Bulsiewicz discusses the immune system's two arms, the innate and adaptive immune systems. The innate system reacts rapidly and non-specifically to threats such as infections or wounds, acting like the body's frontline defense via cells like macrophages and neutrophils. The adaptive immune system, more intricate and sophisticated, adapts over time by developing memory cells and antibodies to previously encountered threats, which is necessary because bacteria evolve rapidly. Most immune cells, around 70%, reside just beneath the gut epithelial barrier, existing to intercept threats before they enter the bloodstream. The gut barrier integrity, maintained by tight junction proteins, depends heavily on nutrients produced by gut microbes, particularly short-chain fatty acids, SCFAs, such as butyrate. A healthy microbiome produces robust amounts of these metabolites that fuel barrier cells and keep immune responses balanced, allowing the immune system to be alert but not overly reactive. Disruption of this system leads to systemic and chronic inflammation. The episode takes a broader lens to describe how the 21st century environment actively undermines gut health and fuels inflammation. Compared to earlier generations, modern life is marked by widespread consumption of ultra-processed foods, sedentary indoor lifestyles, excessive screen time, social isolation, and chronic stress. These factors cumulatively create a toxic external and internal environment for the microbiome and body. Ultra-processed foods, containing high amounts of refined sugars, salt, and unhealthy fats, dominate the American diet, accounting for 60% of adult and 70% of children's daily calories. These foods disrupt the microbiome by fostering dysbiosis, damaging the gut barrier, and promoting inflammation. They are engineered for hyperpalatability, causing people to overeat and override natural satiety signals. Meanwhile, Americans spend about 93% of their time indoors, away from nature and sunlight, limiting exposure to natural microbial diversity and circadian rhythm cues. Loneliness has become a pervasive epidemic, comparable in impact to smoking cigarettes, underscoring the importance of holistic environmental health beyond diet alone. Dr. Bulsiewicz highlights a largely overlooked but critical issue. Tens of thousands of chemicals and additives are regularly introduced into foods and consumer products under lax regulations, such as the GRAS, generally recognized as safe loophole. The safety evaluations often lack rigorous long-term human studies, especially regarding their effects on the gut microbiome. Recent evidence reveals that a significant number of these chemicals disrupt microbial communities. Yet governmental regulatory bodies do not monitor microbiome health during approval processes, resulting in a massive unregulated human experiment with unknown long-term consequences. He expresses disappointment in the failure of regulatory systems to keep pace with scientific understanding and the influence of corporate interests in maintaining deregulated environments. While systemic change is unlikely soon, individuals can reclaim agency by reshaping their immediate environments, starting with what they bring into their homes. Central to Dr. Bulsiewicz's message is the identification of 4 key dietary elements he calls the 4 workhorse nutrients that can heal and support the gut microbiome: fiber, polyphenols, healthy fats, and fermented foods. These nutrients are largely absent from the typical Western diet, which is deficient in fiber and rich in damaging components. Fiber, the first and most important of these, is a prebiotic exclusive to plant-based foods such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, nuts, seeds, and mushrooms. It feeds the gut microbes, fostering beneficial species that produce anti-inflammatory short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, crucial for gut barrier integrity and immune modulation. Resistant starch, found in foods like cooked and cooled potatoes and legumes, complements fiber by nourishing microbes in different colon regions. Despite its vital role, over 95% of Americans fail to meet recommended fiber intakes, often mistaking fiber-fortified processed foods as adequate. Polyphenols, the second workhorse, are complex plant compounds found in colorful fruits and vegetables, responsible for the "eat the rainbow" admonition. These molecules reach the colon largely intact and are metabolized and activated by microbes, enhancing microbial diversity and short-chain fatty acid production. Berries, especially wild varieties like lingberries, are among the richest sources. The third element, healthy fats, primarily monounsaturated fats like extra virgin olive oil and omega-3 fatty acids, is necessary for microbiome health and reducing inflammation. Dr. Bulsiewicz cautions against excessive saturated fat, typical of Western diets, and acknowledges the complexity around plant-based sources of omega-3s, like ALA, and the challenges in converting them to DHA-EPA. He endorses algae-based omega-3 supplements, noting that they can be nutritionally superior and free from contaminants found in fish oils, but must contain both DHA and EPA for full benefit. On contentious seed oils, he advocates nuance. While they may be preferable to saturated fats, extra virgin olive oil remains superior, and ultra-processed foods remain the bigger enemy. Fermented foods are the fourth pillar, containing live microbes, transformed nutrients, and bioactive compounds that enrich the microbiome and reduce inflammation. Traditional fermented foods such as kimchi, sauerkraut, miso, tempeh, and sourdough bread provide beneficial microbes and metabolites. Fermented dairy is beneficial for those who consume dairy, but plant-based fermented alternatives are recommended for others. Clinical studies have shown that increasing fermented food intake can measurably enhance microbial diversity and lower inflammation within weeks. Beyond what to eat, Dr. Bulsiewicz emphasizes when and how lifestyle patterns like timing of light exposure, eating, and sleep regulate gut and immune health through circadian rhythms. Our bodies evolved tightly synchronized to the sun's 24-hour cycle, with gene activity and microbiome functions fluctuating accordingly. Morning sunlight exposure, ideally within the first hour after waking, enhances cortisol response, resetting the circadian clock, improving focus, energy, and sleep quality. Artificial lighting and indoor lifestyles erode this natural rhythm. The immune system is uniquely more active at night when the microbiome focuses on recovery and repair. Eating late, especially close to bedtime, disrupts this nocturnal process by elevating blood triglycerides and provoking inflammation, compromising metabolic health. Time-restricted eating, with 10 to 12-hour daily eating windows typically aligned with daylight, brings metabolic and microbiome benefits by allowing periods of fasting that reduce inflammation and promote microbial diversity. Alcohol, even at moderate levels, is particularly harmful to gut health due to its ability to increase gut permeability and promote inflammatory bacterial components like lipopolysaccharide (LPS) entering the bloodstream. This not only triggers immune activation, but perpetuates a cycle of gut barrier breakdown and inflammation, also negatively impacting sleep quality. Dr. Bulsiewicz broadens the lens further into the psychological and spiritual domains, describing how emotional trauma, loneliness, and spiritual disconnection profoundly influence gut health and systemic inflammation. Recognizing the limitations of current scientific understanding, he integrates mind-body perspectives, underscoring that holistic healing must address more than physical symptoms. The autonomic nervous system's balance between the sympathetic, fight or flight, and parasympathetic, rest and digest branches directly affects the gut. Chronic stress and hypervigilance, sympathetic dominance common in modern life, social media exposure, and trauma disrupt gut function, promoting inflammation. Shifting into parasympathetic states through meaningful human connection, prayer, meditation, music, and other restorative practices supports gut healing. Childhood trauma, as well as adult trauma, such as PTSD, affects brain anatomy, particularly hyperactive amygdala function, heightening stress responses, which in turn promotes an inflammatory gut environment and diminished microbial diversity. He shares compelling research demonstrating that even early life adversity leaves lasting imprints detectable via brain imaging and gut health markers, independent of conscious memory. In a deeply personal segment, Dr. Bulsiewicz recounts his own childhood family trauma, the pain of parental divorce, estrangement from his father during young adulthood, and the subsequent decade-long silence that weighed on his emotional and physical health. Through his wife's encouragement, he reconnected with his father, rebuilding their relationship and creating meaningful shared experiences. Tragically, his father passed unexpectedly shortly after their reunion. This story serves as a testament to the healing power of connection, forgiveness, and addressing unresolved emotional wounds for whole-person health. Dr. Bulsiewicz shares how his faith has been central to finding purpose and peace, emphasizing that healing requires acknowledging questions beyond science and opening space for spiritual understanding unique to each individual. He challenges listeners not to delay mending fractured relationships or neglect the intangible aspects of their well-being, as these emotional and spiritual dimensions significantly influence their overall health journey.